Bro, I seriously debated publishing this video. I'm pretty sure half of my league hate watches my videos, steals my picks, steals my strategies, but I'm a man of the people, and this is going to be my PPR draft strategy for 2025. The ultimate strategy. This is the one that I think you guys should be using in all of your PPR leagues. Now, keep in mind, your league settings are specific to you, so you might have to make some tweaks. You might have to change a few things in this draft strategy. I'm gonna give you guys a couple of ways you can approach this where you can kind of be flexible, right? For example, dude, there's one dude in my league. I'm pretty sure he gives his phone to his newborn infant because the way this man drafts, bro, he's taking like kickers in the 8th round, 3 quarterbacks. This dude's all over the place, man. And every league has this, man. Every league has a dude who's going to do that. He's going to ruin the draft board for everyone. You're going to think players are going to fall to you, but they're just not going to. I'm Ron from Never Lucky. We know ball. We just have zero luck here. We're going to start this video with the philosophy, with the approach, with the research. This is like the data stuff. This is where we're going to get into the weed. Ryan Heath, he writes this article, I think almost every year. It's one of the most useful articles, man. It shouldn't be free, to be honest. It's called The Anatomy of a League Winner. The key takeaways, I'm not going to go through the whole article, but the key takeaways from this article is that winning your fantasy league usually comes down to landing one of the 7 through 15 true league winners each season. So one of them. You don't have to hit on all of them. Our goal is to try to get as many as we can, obviously, in that top 15, right? History shows that running backs, wide receivers dominate that list, but in 2025, wide receivers may have the edge. That's his takeaway in his article. Go check it out if you want to do your own research. And grabbing an elite dual threat quarterback in the mid rounds could be a sneaky way to win big. Check out this chart here. This comes from Fantasy Points data. This is probably the God chart. It's got everything you guys need. It's a percent of players drafted in each round to become league winners. So if we're fishing for league winners, if we're looking for those 7 of 15 guys, we kind of know where they appear, where they're drafted. And we see that wide receivers in the 1st and 2nd round have the highest chance of becoming league winners. But, you know, there remains some opportunity in the later rounds, up until around round 6. After that, you really don't want to be taking too many stabs at wide receiver. And when we look at running back, most league winners, highest out of all of the rounds, comes in round 2. So it's not your round 1 running backs. It's not your Bijans, your Saquons. So we see this all the time where running backs that get dropped the 2nd round. Think about this year with like Jonathan Taylor, sometimes Devon Achane. These are the dudes where most of the league winners come from. But for the most part, it's fairly uniform from rounds 1 to 4. 18%, 24%, 20%, 19%. Then there's a fall off, right? 11%, 8%. And after round 6, from round 7 from round 7 to 11, essentially, you kind of want to just be fading running back. And then you want to come back in, start swooping running backs late. For quarterbacks, most league winning quarterbacks happen in the 3rd and 4th round. Obviously, there's some hits late in the later rounds, like your Jaden Daniels, right? In round 11 plus last year, or round 9 plus. I got him in round 9 because I reached for him. I wanted to make sure I got him. And then when you look at tight ends, it's like round 2, 50% of the league winners happen in round 2. Now, to be fair, or to preface this data, Travis Kelce kind of dominated this data. Travis Kelce was going like the 2nd round every single season for the past like 10 years, and he was just a league winner every single time. So it's kind of skewed. But for the most part, late round tight end is viable. You can get one in the 12th, 14th round. You have about a 10% chance of them becoming a league winner. You know, the 6th round, 18%. So there's some value scattered. I guess the takeaway from this chart is that, especially in a full PPR league, 1st and 2nd round should probably be wide receiver. That's your highest chance of hitting on a league winner. And because it's a PPR league, because all wide receivers have more value, especially the ones that get a lot of catches, not your big play guys, that's why we want to be targeting wide receivers. So I'm setting up the kind of the framework for this draft strategy. I hope you guys are still following. Our general approach is this. Best chance to get a league winning wide receiver is rounds 1 to 2. Best chance to get a league winning running back is rounds 2 to 3. And your best chance to get a league winning quarterback is rounds 3 to 4. So in between, if you're going to get a quarterback around 5, 6, 7, you're going to go for Baker, Bo Nix, probably not worth. Just the percentages aren't with you, man. I mean, that's why I said this draft strategy it's meant to be data backed. Now, I'm not going to say we're only going to look at data. Obviously, you want to play the draft as it falls to you. This is the strategy. I've narrowed it down to 2 different builds. As I mentioned, remember I said Warzone builds, your 4-man group. You want to go in your first 4 rounds, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, or wide receiver, quarterback, running back. You might be asking yourself, Ron, what the fuck, man? Are you saying to never take a running back in the 2nd round? even in a PPR league? No. If a tier 1 running back were to fall to you, I'll share with you guys my tiers or a couple players from my tiers a little later. You know, how do I know what a league winner is? You might be asking yourself a lot of questions like, bro, this is super like narrow, right? Like what if I need to adapt? What if that fucking dude with his newborn is taking quarterbacks early and then there's no more QBs in round 3 to 4? Let's talk about running backs first. Basically the running back dead zone, which used to be this, you know, round 3 to 6 where you want to avoid all the running backs because there's no value. It's all these volume based RB2s who are just going to be inefficient, maybe lose their job, maybe they're older. It doesn't exist anymore. Ryan Heath, dude, I'm referencing Ryan Heath left and right. The number of running backs drafted in the first 40 picks of ESPN leagues by season. We see a steady decline, man. So in 2017, 19, and then we see it kind of hovers around 19, 17, 18. And in 2025, 15 running backs are taken in the first 40. So we see that's only a four player difference, but that's 20%, man. 20% fewer running backs going in the early rounds. That's pushing running backs further. That means the dead zone used to be this place where you'd want to avoid running backs. It seems there's a lot of value. And that's why this strategy works out, man. That's why you want to go wide receiver, quarterback, and then you're going to find running back value in those rounds 3 to 6. And we're going to show the mocks. We're going to go through it. You only want to draft a running back around 1 to 2 or running backs if they're a true 3 down back. Now, I have my tiers where I have, you know, everything color coded. You have your nice shit. It's all in my draft guide. You can go down in the Patreon, find it. 3 down backs. They get red zone work. They get passing game work, preferably. You know, there's a few dudes who this is you know, they're just on really good offenses. There are 5 of those guys in 2025. 5 of them. This is my tier. These are my tier 1 running backs. You can find the whole thing in Patreon, as I mentioned. Jahmyr Gibbs, number 1. Bijan Robinson, number 2. Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, and Devon Achane. End of list. Those are the 5 guys. Those are the dudes who they have the league winning upside. And another reason why this strategy works out so well, as I mentioned, man, is that there are so many good running backs that fall to the 3rd round. Think about James Cook, Chase Brown, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams. These are dudes who not only do they have workhorse roles where they get workhorse work, they get the end zone, they get the red zone, they get their receptions. You know, all 4 of those guys. Those are guys that you can find in the 3rd and 4th round, man. In some leagues. Obviously, a lot of people are going to probably comment on this video and say, yo, Ron, fucking Chase Brown's going in the 2nd round. What are you talking about? That's fair, man. But you got to remember, not all leagues are the same, dude. Especially in a PPR league, people get antsy, man. They start taking wide receivers. They start taking Marvin Harrison in the 2nd round. People get really excited in PPR leagues. They want to make sure that they have that position solidified. We're doing the same, but we're kind of playing by value, man. So if you're looking for a running back from rounds 3 to 6, you want to go for dudes whose roles aren't fully defined yet. Archetype of this is RJ Harvey. We know that Sean Payton offenses love to throw to the running back. Last year, Javonte Williams, for fuck's sakes, got 70 carries, man. And that man is cooked, dude. He's 1 HP. He's probably the worst running back in the NFL at the moment, or at least coming off the injury. He looked horrible. Yet he even got 70 receptions. A couple other names that kind of match this archetype, right, in this round 3 to 6. Trevion Henderson, Kenneth Walker, RJ Harvey, I already listed him. The takeaway from the running back section is that you really want to avoid your brand names, right? Avoid your David Montgomerys. I know he was good in the past, but you want to avoid these like volume-based early down backs who don't have a lot of receiving upside. Fade those guys, take the wide receivers in those rounds, keep building out your wide receivers. And now we got to talk about wide receivers because we need to blend these two things together, right? So I currently have 12 wide receivers ranked in the top 24 in PPR leagues. Of those 12, 11 of them are legit league winner candidates. This is like one of the first times in fantasy football history, in my fucking time doing it, that we have like so many big name league winning potential wide receivers in like the top 24. I'm going to quickly list them here for you guys just so you can visualize what I'm talking about. Maybe you disagree with some of them. I'm super down to hear your guys' thoughts. Of the other 12 picks in the top 24, it's running backs, quarterbacks. So there's like 1 tight end in that little group. So that's essentially the takeaway. You want to target as many of those guys in the first 3 rounds or the first 2 rounds as possible. But from rounds 3 to 6, you want to be looking for 2nd year wide receivers. That's kind of like a cheat code that's existed in fantasy football for the longest time. It's like, it's not really a secret anymore. A lot of people know about this kind of like edge that people used to use, that 2nd year wide receivers. That's when they usually explode. It's when they usually pop off. Rookies with target upside. So dudes who like Tedero McMillan from rounds 3 to 6, he's like the perfect draft pick, right? Because he's entering a situation where he's going to have a lot of targets. He's going to have a lot of volume. Or wide receivers benefiting from vacated volume. So people who are joining a team where there's not a lot of stuff. Think about DK Metcalf. There's not really anyone behind him. He's not a rookie. He's not a 2nd year wide receiver, but he's entering a situation where there's so many targets to be fed to him, right? All of George Pickens' targets are going to go potentially directly to DK Metcalf, maybe even some from some of the other guys, because I think DK is a much better Target earner than George Pickens. George Pickens never used to be a high volume guy, while DK Metcalf has shown us to be. Some more names that kind of match this archetype, right, of either second year wide receiver, target upside, or wide receivers benefiting from vacated volume. Zay Flowers, someone that I really love. He's on a top offense. He's not going to get a lot of volume, but he's on a very good offense, and he's entering year 3, still young. And, there's not really anyone else on the team. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is not going to really do much, right? Rashad Bateman's not a high volume earner. Xavier Worthy is another guy where he's extremely discounted at the moment. He's somebody where, we got some bad news about Rashee Rice. Looks like he's going to be able to play to start the season, but it looks like they're kind of gunning for like a 10-game suspension. That's kind of being negotiated. There's a chance it's Xavier Worthy for potentially 10 games of the season with this wide receiver room being at the top of this wide receiver room. So the takeaway from this with wide receivers, this is just a little factoid. You guys can put it in your pocket. You want to aim to leave round 6 with at least 3 to 4 wide receivers. And now we move over to quarterbacks. So with quarterbacks, it's very simple. We're not going to harp on this too long. Take an early quarterback in round 3 or 4, only if it's one of the top 4 guys. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and JD5, Jaden Daniels. Those are the 4 guys that I'm trying to target in the first 4 rounds. Other than that, just wait. Just wait and find the value later. You're skipping out on really good wide receivers and tight ends if you take those guys. For example, man, instead of taking like a, Bo Nix in the 7th round, you might be skipping out on like a Josh Downs, a Matthew Golden, a Jawan Jennings. These are guys that can do much more for you than the difference. If you were to just wait for a Jordan Love later, is Bo Nix going to be so much better than Jordan Love to warrant you skipping out on a Josh Downs? I don't think so, in my opinion. And now we move on to tight ends. Again, this one is easy. I fucking punt tight ends every single season. I do not like drafting tight ends early unless it's like a super high upside guy like a Travis Kelce. But at the moment, man, I think there's a mid-tier trap where you have your Kelce's, your Ingrams, your Mark Andrews. These guys seem like a trap, man, because in those rounds, in round 8, right, where you're going to have to go and grab Evan Ingram or Mark Andrews, you're skipping out on like potentially like really useful running backs, right? Caleb Johnson, I know I'm not that high on him, but he's still a starting caliber running back for a team that wants to run the ball. Tyrone Tracy, he's got receiving upside. He's going in the 8th round. He's the starting running back for the Giants. Jaden Reed is another guy, man. Like, he's a gadget player. He's not a high volume earner. He's not going to really help you out in full PPR leagues in terms of just like a floor or safe baseline, but he's somebody that can get explosion games any given week, right? He's kind of got that Deebo Samuel role. My approach is that because I'm telling you guys to take a quarterback early in drafts, you probably want to fade tight end. You don't want to take a onesie position 2 times in the first like 7 rounds, but you don't want to wait too long, right? You do like, there's one guy that I like in like, the 13th plus round, but for the most part, after about round like 12, it's kind of brutal, right? So after that, you don't want to be stuck with like Brenton Strange. Dallas Goedert is someone that I'm not really high on. There's just not enough pass volume there. So you want to make sure you get one of those like later round tight ends that are still good. Think about Dalton Kincaid in the 12th round, Ferguson from the Dallas Cowboys in the 13th round. That's actually a crazy value. That's kind of the range that you want to be looking at tight end eventually. So let's recap, man. So we covered wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends. We covered the draft strategy of how you want to draft. We'll repeat it here. I'll show it to you guys one more time. Wide receiver, running back, quarterback, or wide receiver, quarterback, running back. In the end, you want 4 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds. You want to be able to fill all of your flex spots with wide receivers. All right, now we're going to hop into the first mock draft. I'm drafting from the 3 spot. We're going to see if we can employ this strategy. We see that I get CeeDee Lamb at the 1-3. I'm very happy with that. He's my second ranked player in flex PPR. So I have him above Barkley, Gibbs, any of the other running backs. We come back around and I see that Josh Allen comes off the board. Garrett Wilson is still on the board, and I see that Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels are still on the board. I'm taking a risk here. I go with Garrett Wilson. He's still one of my tier 1 wide receivers. That's why I take him there. He was at the end of the tier 1 list. I swoop him. I come back around. I see that Jaden Daniels is on the board. I take Jaden Daniels because I know that Hurts is not going to come back to me in the 4th round. So I take Jaden Daniels and I see if I can get lucky in the 4th round with a running back to fall to me. This is where it's a little bit dicey, right? Where you're really hoping some of these running backs fall to you in the 4th round. I come back around. I take James Conner. Unfortunately, Chuba didn't fall to me. I think I would have liked Chuba Hubbard a little bit more than Conner. But then I swing around and I take Trevon Henderson. He fits the mold of a young, ambiguous backfield, dynamic pass catching running back with a lot of upside. I take him as my second running back, and then I'm essentially punting running back the rest of the way. As I mentioned, I want to try to get to 4 wide receivers in the first 7 or so rounds. So I come back around, I take Waddle, who's got the prototype of like, he used to be a prime wide receiver where he was a top 12 wide receiver at one point. still on a good offense, still with a competent offensive coordinator and a competent quarterback. I come back around and take Calvin Ridley, wide receiver 1 for the Titans. I'm not the biggest Calvin Ridley fan just because of his age, but you got to take the value as it falls to you. Come back around, I take Matthew Golden. Unfortunately, Josh Downs didn't fall to me. That would have been nice in the 8th round. I swing back around. I see that Jordan Mason's still on the board. I'm like, all right, I need to start attacking running back. It's now round 9 through 14. I have now 5 rounds to get my running back situation right. I take Jordan Mason. He's going to be the 1B on the Vikings, very competent offense. Then in the 10th round, we see that there was a tight end run right before my pick. So I start to get a little bit squirrely. I start to get a little bit antsy. So I take Jake Ferguson. He's the end of that tier, as I mentioned. Otherwise, I would have had to wait and take Dallas Goedert or Likely. Now, in a later mock draft or in the next mock draft, I'll show you a situation where I do take a tight end very late, and it's the one guy that I like really late, so stay tuned for that. I then fill out the rest of my running backs. I get Rashad White and Baishal Tune, 2 upside receiving running backs. Again, it's a PPR league, so you want to get those receiving running backs. And then I notice, all right, I have 5 wide receivers. I can either take like just a boring handcuff, like I think Taj Brooks was on the board, but instead I say, you know what, I'm going to take Keenan Allen. He had rapport with Justin Herbert. He still looked pretty good for the Bears. He's a starting wide receiver in the NFL. He was very talented. I know he's a little bit older. Why not, dude? There's some upside there. He doesn't really fit the mold of the type of late round pick that we want. We usually want to take dart throws and running backs. I take Keenan Allen. Swing back around. I take one of my guys, somebody that I have ranked, really ahead of ADP. Jalen Noel, another young wide receiver with a lot of upside. He could find himself in a starting slot role for the Texans. So I take the chance on that. So to recap this mock draft, we go wide receiver, quarterback, running back. We then fill the team. We get one more good running back in the 5th round to make sure we have that, our RB1 and RB2 slot set, locked in. That way we can just essentially ignore running back for a while. We then fill with wide receivers. We get running backs late, a tight end a little bit late, and then we fill the rest of the team. I thought that was a really good mock draft to kind of show the strategy from the early rounds. Now we move to the next mock draft where I drafted from the 7th pick. Now in this mock draft, I want to show you guys where things kind of don't go my way, where the strategy that I want to employ just doesn't work out. And I take Nico in the 1st round because he, just by my rankings, I have him above St. Brown, Nakua, Neighbors. I swing back around, CMC is on the board. That's really not going to happen in a non-ChatGPT draft, but I take him just to see what happens. And then in the 3rd round, I'm essentially at a crossroads. Do I stick with my strategy of taking Hurts or Jaden Daniels because they're still on the board in the 3rd round? I eventually say, let me see what happens if I stick to my 2 wide receivers in the first 3 round strategy. I take Garrett Wilson. He's a tier 1 wide receiver still in the 3rd round. I say, what if one of these quarterbacks falls? That was never going to happen. And then in the 4th round, all the tier 1 quarterbacks are off the board. So I say, all right, I'm going to stick to my strategy. I'm not going to reach for Mahomes or Burrow. I'm going to wait. I'm going to take Hampton, solidify my RB2 spot, and then see what happens, man. And then in the 5th round, Xavier Worthy's still on the board. Someone that by the time draft season rolls around, I think could probably be like a top 20 pick. It's just, we know that Rashee Rice is probably not going to play, as I mentioned earlier in the video. I come back around the 6th round. This is also rarely going to happen, but you just never know in these drafts. As I mentioned, the dude with his infant might be picking random fucking players. Take Trevion Henderson in the 6th round. Now, through 6 rounds, I have 3 wide receivers, 3 running backs. Now that goes fully against my strategy of trying to get wide receivers, 4 wide receivers in the first 6 rounds. But that's okay, man, because in the 7th round, we take Matthew Golden. We come back around, and in the 8th round, Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray is one of these interesting players to me where he's in between 2 tiers. He's in between your tier 1 with Josh Allen, Lamar, JD5, and Jalen Hurts. And he's kind of alone in a tier, right? Where he's got a lot of rushing upside. He's been a top 5 quarterback in the past. He just has been kind of playing poorly recently, right? So in previous seasons, this dude was going in the 4th round, 5th round. Like Kyler Murray was like a top 5 drafted quarterback, right? Because of his rushing upside. So I think he's somebody he's actually a pretty crazy value at the moment in draft. So, and I fix my wide receiver position in the next 2 rounds. I take Josh Downs and Marvin Mims, 2 guys with a lot of upside. Marvin Mims did play on 100% of snaps in the first preseason game. That was one of the bigger knocks on Marvin Mims in the past. He was such a good player statistically, right? All his per route and per target values were very good, but he just couldn't stay on the field or couldn't get on the field. And then because I did that, I'm like, all right, let me see what more running back value I can get. I end the draft with Tajay Spears, Baishal Tootin, Dylan Sampson, 3 pass catching running backs that I really am excited about in PPR leagues. In the final round, I'm like, all right, I need a tight end. The dude that I love taking this guy even earlier. I like taking him in the 11th round, 12th round if I have to. It's Chigo Conquo, one of my favorite breakout sleeper tight ends. Usage was fantastic last year at the end of the year. There's not a lot of mouths to feed on the Titans. All the arguments you can make for Calvin Ridley, you can make for Chigo Conquo at the tight end position, right? So that's where the draft kind of didn't go how I planned. My PPR strategy kind of fell short, but essentially in the first 10 rounds, I still end up getting my 6 wide receivers that I'm actually really confident in starting the entire season. And now I hope you guys are still with me. This is the final mock draft where we draft at the end of the draft from the 11th pick. And I go with Puka Nacua with my first pick. I swing back around and I'm following my strategy. Wide receiver, quarterback, or running back, quarterback. However the draft falls to you based on where you're drafting, you can kind of figure this out based on ADPs. I take Brian Thomas in the second round, swing back around. Jaden Daniels makes it to me at the end of the third round. I was very happy about that because if Jaden Daniels didn't make it to me, I might have been pretty sad. I might have had to punt quarterback, but this is a situation where it works out extremely perfectly for us, where we take Jaden Daniels because I know there's still a lot of running backs. I'm not going to go for a running back in the third round. There's still a lot that I'll like in my next pick. I'm picking in 2 more picks. James Cook and Garrett Wilson go off the board. I take Kenneth Walker, high upside, dynamic running back. Yes, he's not on the best team, but out of the guys remaining, I think Kenneth Walker has the most upside. Omari and Hampton was an option, but he's competing with Najee Harris, who they've said multiple times Najee Harris will have a role, right? While with Kenneth Walker, we don't really know if Charbonnet is going to have like a legit 1B role, right? We think it's going to be Kenneth Walker fully. And then in the 5th round, I take Trevion Henderson. I've already spoken about him, dude. The amount of upside he has is insane. To try to right this ship where I said you want to try to have 4 wide receivers in the first 7 rounds, I go with Pickens in the 6th, swing around and take Khalil Shakir in the 7th, who's got a lot of, he's kind of like a good version of Wandale Robinson. He's going to get a lot of targets. He's not going to do a lot with them, but it's a PPR league, so we're happy about that. Swing around, I get some upside with Juwan Jennings. Also, potentially the prime alpha wide receiver for the 49ers. Looks like Ayuk is still kind of debilitated, not really practicing yet. He might not even play to start the season. He might be back by like week 6. We don't even know. I take David Njoku in the 9th round because typically David Njoku is also at the end of a tier that I really like in the tight end for the tight end position. That's a place where I'm okay to take a tight end. And then to solidify my Kenneth Walker share that I got in the 4th round, I take Charbonnet just in case Kenneth Walker does go down. He has an injury. He seems to be someone who gets injured often, so I'm not really sure about that. And then Tajay Spears in the 11th round for some pass catching upside, and then Rashad White in the 12th round for more pass catching. I now have 5 running backs, so I would feel okay throwing them in my lineup whenever I need to. The running back position is replaceable. I'm going to be playing the waiver wire for running backs, looking for those upside running backs, looking for handcuffs. That's how I'm approaching these drafts, man. I'm loading up on wide receivers. The final 2 rounds, I take Cedric Tillman, who's one of the most undervalued players in fantasy. And then I end with Hollywood Brown, because if Rice is out and Xavier Worthy's a guy, Hollywood Brown should not be too far back, right? So he should be pushed up drafts as well. Those are the 3 mock drafts, man. So those are the 3 mock drafts. We covered 1 mock draft for each place in the draft, early round, mid round, late round. We tried to employ our strategy as best as we could. We saw what happens if you kind of stray away from it. If you take the value as it falls to you, you can still follow the general skeleton, the general template, right? We covered the philosophy, the strategy, what are good picks at wide receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end, when to draft them, when to draft quarterback and tight end. The takeaway is that we got to approach these drafts, man, without a firm decision. Don't just stick to one strategy. As you guys saw in the second mock draft, things didn't go my way. Where a running back fell to me, I take him. A quarterback then didn't fall to me, and I saw how I can salvage the draft by sticking to my guns, sticking to my tiers, avoiding the dead zones for each position, right? And just sticking to that, man. And I think we did a good job with those. So, man, if you want my full rankings with tiers, color codes, notes, offensive line report, fades, league winners, everything, man, I've consolidated everything. Find everything on my Patreon. The link is down below. I'll see you guys in the next videos, man. We're not done, dude. We're going to be doing a lot of videos, digging deeper into the middle rounds, late rounds. We're going to be doing some anatomy videos of what a league winner looks like. We're going to dive deeper, man. But I wanted to release this draft strategy video because a lot of people are pushing like double hero RB. People are pushing to take running backs early. And in PPR leagues, it just doesn't work out, man. It's just not how you want to approach these PPR leagues, man, because, wide receivers have so much more value in these leagues. So anyway, I'm Ron J from Never Lucky, and I hope you guys like this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.